me deal first with the facts as I understand them.
Sure.
This lady was arrested with one other who then absconded at the time of arrest from a vehicle on the 22nd of August 2008 during the era of the previous government. And she was taken to court. As with exhibits of this nature, a preliminary test was done of some samples, and it came back as positive for cocaine. She goes to court, and against the norms of the law at the time or currently, she is granted bail. That is point number one.
She was granted bail in 2008, is that what you're saying?
Yes. No. In 2009.
Okay.
She was granted bail in 2009.
Okay.
I'll get you the date anyway.
Okay. But she was granted bail in spite...
Yeah.
November 11th, 2009. Okay. In spite of the provisions...
Don't mix two dates. She's granted bail twice in this case. So let's not mix
The first one was November 11th, 2009.
Okay, she was granted bail in 2009.
I was told September 11th.
Okay.
September 11th, not November.
2008.
September 11th.
2008.
2009.
Okay.
That was the first one.
Yeah.
That was the
And
first
the second
bill.
one.
Okay, proceed. Alex.
Well, we all are, I think the dates are not going to be an issue
Of course,
at this stage,
but precision.
Yes, I agree. What's it called? She was first arraigned, I believe, on September the 4th, 2008.
Okay.
And then in September 11, 2009, my understanding, she was then granted bail by the High Court, by His Lordship Justice D.K. Ofosu-Kwoti. And then she fled the jurisdiction.
Okay.
When we, found this out, in October 26th, we entreated the bail, more or less. She was on bail, so we went for the person who had stood surety. And we're going to sequestrate their assets for the bail. With that person's assistance, she was led back into the jurisdiction. And then he handed her over, or she was arrested and brought before the court again. July 25th, 2011, she was arraigned before court once again and charged with possession of a narcotic drug. Whilst this was going on September 16th, 2011, another application was made for bail. She was granted bail again.
This is the person who first jumped bail.
Exactly.
The first time.
She's jumped bail.
And she's rearrested.
She's rearrested after she's left the jurisdiction. She's granted bail again.
Was it by the same judge?
No.
Okay.
Different same High Court, but different judge.
Okay.
Now, that alone raises all sorts of questions of how this happened. In terms of my understanding of the process, from the time she's arrested with the drug, the arresting officer goes with her to the police station. The arresting officer never leaves the presence of the defendant with the substance. Till they get to the charge, it is logged in, and then it is handed over to the exhibit room and logged as that, and it's sealed at that point.
This is after it's been tested? And
no, it hasn't been tested yet.
Okay.
It is put in a store.
Okay.
With arrangements of everybody, it is then taken by the officer in charge. He's the only one who can then have access to it. It is taken to an exhibit room, not the exhibit room, the laboratory. It is tested, and then it is resealed at that point, because when he first takes it to the exhibit room, there's a seal on it. The seal is broken in the laboratory by the laboratory technician. Have broken it. It is resealed, taken back to the exhibit room, and it remains in that room till the trial. That's why I do not believe it was in the court at that stage. I stand to be corrected. Trial begins. The officer is asked to bring the exhibit to court at the point of tendering it. He brings the exhibits to court. Seals are opened. Exhibit is looked at. At that point, it's in the possession of the court as an exhibit. Normal practice is, with the little law that I know, is that notwithstanding that it is in the domain of the court, exhibits of this nature are never kept by the court. Two things happen. Either the judge remands the exhibit back into the possession of the police, or he, even once everybody has agreed that that is the exhibit, orders its destruction. Any of those two can happen. It didn't happen in this case. In this case, the drugs were actually kept by the court. Now, there is no security apparatus, as far as I'm aware, in the courthouse to keep sensitive exhibits. So even if you had an exhibit of £5 million and you brought it to the courthouse, you wouldn't expect that exhibit to be kept anywhere in the court. It will be brought by the police and it will be taken back by the police because they have the security apparatus to ensure its safety. So any way I look at the facts, there are lots of questions the court has to answer. Dealing first with the bail position of the lady, and then dealing secondly with the custody of the exhibit. Because it has left open a whole can of worms, drawing two major agencies into play, namely the police force and the courts. And why has it done so? Because if the exhibit had always remained in the possession of just one of them at all times, that group will now be in a position to answer how it has changed. But you have a situation where it's going to be toing and froing. The courts are going to do the investigation. The police have said, we've given you, they've come out openly and said, we gave you the exhibit. We were satisfied that that was the exhibit you your security system between the time when you got it and when it then changed over cannot have been said to be foolproof enough not for a switch to be made at that time. Which is actually, from where I'm sitting, an accurate assessment of the situation. Is
it possible, though, I don't know if there's a testing that is actually done in the court, that by the time, okay, so is it possible?
They don't
exactly. So they bring it as exhibit. Is it possible that at the time that it could have been switched at that time?
No.
Why not?
I find it strange that even the process of dealing with exhibits for me is quite difficult for me to swallow in this circumstance. Why? It's a powdery substance. It actually should not be opened in open court. It should be in a sealed, transparent bag so that you look at it. If anybody wants to question its authenticity, it is done in a lab, and that is where the seals are broken. Okay. So even the breaking of the seals, unless it was, excuse me, in an opaque bag, and in some jurisdictions you actually have them in two bags, the transparent one, and then the second one. The reason why is that you don't want people to know what is in the exhibit, if I can put it that way. If you don't want people to know what is in the exhibit, you put it first in a transparent bag, and then you put it in an opaque bag. And only people who have the number will know that in actual fact, what is in here is drugs.
Okay.
So you can break the first seal, bring out the transparent bag, but you never open the actual exhibit in court, because even if it spills or whatever, the value of that powder is such that you cannot leave particles even hanging around. So it should never be opened openly in open court, because no judge or lawyer has any mechanism in that court to decide whether what they are seeing is or is not. So why are you even opening the exhibit in open court? Except that if it's a transparent bag, and even with weapons, when we do exhibits in weapons in court, they are in transparent bag because you don't want anybody to get cut by mistake, you don't want anybody to be injured, so they don't actually ever take the exhibit out unless there's a particular reason. Which then brings us to the question as to what, it's nothing to do with the defense lawyer. Lawyers follow instructions from their clients. But what informed
the
request for a retesting. Sample had been taken. The only thing that I can put to mind is if you are looking to delay. You want to delay the case longer, you need to buy time. You say, look, I'm not happy with the exhibit test, so go and yes, that is sometimes done, a stalling tactic. But to have the exhibit there on the first day, no mention is made of it. It goes and sits for 24 hours. It comes back, and then all of a sudden, the defense make a request for this item to be examined. You look at the history of the case, you put it together, and you ask yourself, really, 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 what is going on?
What do you think is going on?
Well, I will wait for the inquiry to be finished. But I just leave. I think that it's important people have the facts and the understanding of what is happening. There's an education that is going to come from this in terms of how people are going to deal with exhibits. The cross-examination of the court clerk and the judge, because sometimes even the judge might overlook it. The court clerk who is present in court should be the one to also be saying that, look, at the very least, let's reseal these drugs in court so that everybody knows that it's done. To take an unsealed exhibit out of court without people knowing what is happening, keeping it in a judge's room, which I suspect may even have cleaners who may have keys, it's very unprofessional, extremely unprofessional.